Hello, good evening. It's Donald Collins from GoView London, and this is a presentation for Ealing and Acton Business Club, where I've been a member since the club's origins in 2014. And Tricia Stewart, who organises the club and really sort of gets a great amount of momentum and energy and brings in some amazing speakers. I approached Tricia and said, look, done this video presentation on the Ealing property market, potentially it's going to happen sort of post-pandemic, and she said, great, but can we shorten it? So this is the shortened version for everyone, and hope it gives some reassurance to you all at this moment in time. Certainly there's been a lot of sensationalist media reporting about what's going to happen in the economy, what's going to happen in the property market. From my point of view, having worked in the market for sort of 16 years, co-founded GoView in 2010, work in the market day in, day out. Hopefully this can give a good perspective to everyone, and goes without saying, but hope everyone is safe and well as well. It's I've not heard anything sort of first-hand, in regards to anyone from the business club being affected by this. But clearly we all know people, and we've had clients at GoView, and we know people personally that's been affected. So it's clearly it's a terrible time for the whole country, and hope everyone's sort of safe and well as can be. So this is the presentation looking at the Ealing Borough property market. It goes from Hayes in the west right through to Shepherd's Bush in the east, and looked at UK house price index from the land registry, and I wanted to pay particular attention to the credit crunch of 2008 and the impact that had on the market and what the market conditions were like around then. So the main bulk of data is here, and I'm going to go through this fairly well. Hopefully I'm going to go through it quite quickly. You might disagree, but Tricia has asked me to keep it short and brief. If you want the longer presentation, I'll put the link in the comment section as well. So you'll have that. But this is the main bulk of data, 23 years from the land registry. And you can see the percentage increase over that time at 350. Generally, the market's always moved up. It's moved up 19 of those 23 years. When it's moved down in the 2 years post-credit crunch, and also in the last couple of years, mainly due to sort of Brexit uncertainty. But what was really interesting to me looking at this data is seeing how many more transactions were happening 4 years prior to credit crunch. Quite a number of sort of increased transactions. Especially interesting when you look at the interest rate was much higher. We'll look at that in a slide in a moment as well. But quite interesting data. How this then corresponds is that the average number of transactions for the 4 years preceding credit crunch, 5962. Where we are today, they've been running at 2816. So it's a massive drop of 52% on transactions. And that's, again, for me, straight away, I was, and I knew that in the market that we were facing lower transactions, but at the same time, it does point to sort of pent-up demand existing there for people wanting to move. And credit crunch as well, at the time of the credit crunch, you can crystallize that fall in the market at an average of 4.5% for each of the 2 years. Obviously, year one was more acutely felt at 6.7, year two, 2.2, but some commentators are obviously saying this is going to be credit crunch and factors in the market, and that's what it meant on the ground in the Ealing market. This next slide just charts the transactions over the sort of macro period of 10 years pre-2009, 10 years now. There's been a change in the market. Ealing's obviously become less transient because in the 10-year period there was a fall of 40% for that time period. But looking at the last 4 years within the 10-year spectrum, it's still 11% under. So clearly there's been an acute shortage of transactions in the market, which is not great news for for us in estate agency, but it does point that value is holding in the market because there's not a lot of transactions. Mortgage finance, why this matters is because if you go back to 2007, when you were having all those transactions, what was really interesting comparing the data points is that it was actually more expensive to buy a property then at an average price point in the borough at 307 compared to today's market, average price point 475, but it's actually going to cost you £9 a month less in repayments on that mortgage. So some really interesting facts there about affordability in the property market. It's actually quite affordable just now. This is based on a 25% deposit, 75% loan to value. And thanks very much to BKD Financial. Brendan Dixon's also a founding member of the club, and it was his mortgage broker, Andy Walker, who works within BKD, who helped me primarily with these figures. So why have we had so few transactions in the last sort of 4 years? Well, clearly it's a lot to do with Brexit. All the political and economic uncertainty with that has led to a lot of buyers saying, okay, we're just going to hold off, let's wait and see what happens. Coupled with this, the Bank of England now regulate the buy-to-let market. They have done since 2016. And the upshot of this is that your rental payments need to be 145% coverage to your mortgage repayments. And effectively, that means a lot more of a deposit has to go into the property. So it's had an impact on the market, coupled with tax restrictions ongoing for landlords. So clearly, it's put quite a few people off buy-to-let that incidentally I think might well come back, because these buyers might well return to the market given the stock market performance, and certainly property might look as more sort of stable long-term gain. So what can we interpret from this? We've talked about the low volume of transaction. For me, there's pent-up demand in the market. There's a lot of people who will be getting through lockdown and saying, well, actually, I really wish I had made the decision to move 2-3 years ago. You look at the performance of the market in the 5 to 6 years of uncertainty, and actually the market's then moved up 2.7% on average, despite all the elections, despite all the referendums. The market's performed well, it's been robust. And when we look at that longer term, the falls that we chart in that overall sort of, the overall tables, when we look at the longer term, there's only been 4 years out of the 23 that's had a falling market, and overall the market's performed very well over the period. So I hope you found that analysis, hopefully you found it interesting. Hopefully it's given you reassurance, as homeowners in Ealing and Acton, as investors in Ealing and Acton. Hopefully it's given you, a good background to the property market and how the market might react. All contact details here. Management team for GoView London, we are working, we're available to consult on any property matter. The lettings team, there's Brian, who is my business partner. There are details there, and you'll have this presentation out, sort of full details. We manage a couple of properties for people within the business club as well, and Joanna, Soraya, their contact details. So thank you very much, and it will be great to get back to work. It really will be. I think the business club as well, I find it very inspiring, the business club, and really enjoy sort of coming for the meetings and seeing you all. And for me, it's great to sort of discuss problems, discuss challenges that we're facing, and obviously this is the biggest challenge we've faced, and we've faced up to it. I've spoken to a few of you, and there's certainly a lot of sort of positivity, and people are upbeat, and I think we can all get back to work and really look forward to sort of seeing each other and sort of getting things going again. But thanks ever so much for listening. Give me a call, give me an email if you want any further details, and we'll speak soon. Many thanks.